Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Amish Rebel podcast. We really appreciate you doing so. Today's episode, we're just going to cover some comments that have been made on the platform, and we haven't done a video like that in a while. And so look for those answers that you've posted questions on. Hopefully we can get to your comments. We've kind of fallen behind on making videos on the comments that were left. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in. I know I'm looking a little strange today. I actually have an Amish, what we call an overcoat on. This was my brother's when he left. It would definitely not fit him any longer, but it fits me, and so I put it on. And then I have an Amish shirt on, and it feels quite strange to be wearing this again, because it's been many years since I've put it on, probably about 15 years to be exact, or since I've worn it, for an extended period of time. So looking forward to going through these comments, and stay tuned. Hopefully we'll answer some of the questions that you've posted. So Levine, if you want to go ahead and read the first comment, we can talk about it.
Lizzie commented and said, "What blows my mind the most is that the parents allowed this to happen, starting with leaving the door unlocked. So the young boys, can walk right in. They were extremely loud, obnoxious, and rude." She's talking about the way they did, like the last video we posted, the way they did.
Yeah, so what Lizzie is talking about, and thank you, Lizzie, for leaving that comment. You would know firsthand what that's like, because you grew up Swartz and Trooper Amish as well, if I'm not mistaken. And what Lizzie's talking about there is the video that we had made previously about dating. We went into a little bit of detail about the dating life amongst the Amish youth, and that comment is a reflection to that. And yes, it is quite mind-blowing that the parents just allow some of those things to happen. So if you're curious what we're talking about, you can check out the previous episode. Was it episode, what number is that again?
31.
31, episode 31. So if you're more interested in about the Amish dating life, make sure you check out that episode. And that comment was directed towards that. What other comments do we have?
Waymaker commented and said, "I always hated Amish weddings in the evening, because if the Yui were drunk, all they did was throw food around. It's just rude to the rest of the wedding."
Yeah, thank you for that, because that is something that we didn't really cover in the last episode about dating. And we talked a little bit about weddings, but we didn't go into much detail about it. But what happens is, amongst the Amish weddings, especially amongst the Swartz and Trooper Amish weddings, they, as youth, we would go out and party most of the time after the wedding, after the ceremony has been completed. The wedding lasts all day, all the way up until midnight, usually, or even sometimes after midnight. And so it starts early in the morning, goes all the way up until midnight or a little after. And we'd go out and party in the afternoons, come back trash for dinner, and we'd get to the dinner table, and there was usually a couple of disruptors in there, and people would start throwing food, and it just became a big food fight. And it's quite messy. I mean, it's really disrespectful, and but it is kind of expected, because somebody usually ends up starting to throw food, and then you get just a bunch of youth joining in, and you put fruits and vegetables and whatnot on your fork, and you just fling it across the room, and occasionally you'll have some adults step in and try to stop it, and that usually doesn't end up well either. But that's what that comment is talking about. I personally always very much disliked that time as well, because it just became a big mess. food all over the floor, and the women work so hard to prepare all that food, and then the youth are just, and it wasn't always just guys. I mean, women, the young women would join in too, but yeah.
He also commented and said, "Yuck, Amish dating is a joke. I could puke right now."
Yep, that's pretty much true. I mean, once you get outside of, I would say my experience, once you get outside of like the initial introduction to dating, and maybe kind of that you separate yourself as a couple, then Amish dating isn't so much more different than traditional dating, other than, you're riding in a horse and buggy. But yeah, I guess it is different. There are times when you can't meet the parents, and there's just all these awkward moments when you're dating. So yeah, very unattractive.
Shirley commented and said, "I love learning more about the Amish. Thank you for your content. Question about medical. How do the Amish handle medical emergencies and those needing life-sustaining procedures?"
So typically, I mean, do you wanna comment on that? Do you feel
on
like
the life-sustaining?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of times, they have a community phone shack that the community shares in case of emergencies, and someone will run to the phone shack if anything happens. For example, like my parents, a lot of my siblings ended up in emergency situations where my parents, like Dad, would run to the phone shack to call a driver. They never call an ambulance, but they will if it's serious enough.
Yeah.
To call a non-Amish driver to come get them to get to the hospital while Mom took care of the sick kid. Like one time, one of my little brothers got one of his toes got stepped on by a horse, and it took the toe off, and they had to take him to the hospital. And
wow,
Mom was taking care of him, trying to get him to quit screaming, while Dad ran to the phone shack to get a driver, and it was usually one of the neighbors. And yeah, they will go to the hospital if it's necessary. Yes, definitely. But they do that time when my brother's toe got, they took him to the hospital and everything, and the hospital sewed him up.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to bring him back in 2 weeks later to get the stitches taken out, and they didn't. They took the stitches out themselves.
Oh, wow.
Which happens a lot in the Amish. It happens if they break bones and get cast, they will take the cast off themselves instead of going back in.
Yeah.
They use the doctors if they have to, but as little as possible, because they also don't have insurance. So if they get stuck with a hospital bill, it's on them and the church to pay for that.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, I guess I have my own experience too of breaking a bone when I was 16. And I just thought about that. I broke a bone in the side of my foot when I was 16, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on at the time that it happened, but it was really painful. And so they ended up taking me. I mean, it was I think the next day maybe they took me in to our family doctor, which I think was more like a chiropractor. And he could do casts, but that was about it. And so we went there, and he did a cast on my foot, and I could still walk with the cast because he put a block on it. And I used crutches to get around a little bit. But I was supposed to go in for a checkup, and I ended up just taking my cast off at 4 weeks because my foot got so itchy because it was healing. And so I just took it off, never went back.
Yeah,
I didn't want to go back. I didn't want them to take me back because I didn't like going to the doctor.
When I was 11, I broke my wrist, and it happened on a Sunday night, and they kept me at home overnight, just put ice on it all night. And then the next morning they took me to the clinic about 15 miles from our house. And they put a cast on. It was on for a week, or wasn't like a permanent cast. It was just like a makeshift one.
Yeah.
Where they like put the reusable like bandage. I don't even know what it's called. It's like kind of a fabric. Yeah. Wrapped that around for about a week until the swelling went down. Then we went to Shriners Hospital and got a cast put on and everything.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a broken bone. Most of the time is not considered like an emergency unless it's a big bone. Like say you just break a finger or something, they won't rush around trying to save your life because it's just a broken bone.
Yeah.
Reminds like one of my brothers broke his leg while skiing. It was below the knee. And there they took him to the hospital right away, yes. But he was at school when it happened, and the teacher wasn't convinced that he had a broken bone. She was like, he's just pretending. It's like he can get up and go up the hill back to the schoolhouse because they were like downhill from the schoolhouse. And he was like, he can't. And finally, she sent one of the boys to go over to the sawmill with the horse and buggy because some of the kids had to drive to school with horse and buggy because it was too far. Sent one of the boys with the horse and buggy over to the sawmill where my dad worked at to get Dad to come help him get off the phone. And they got there, and sure enough, he had a broken leg.
Wow.
So they loaded him onto the buggy, took him home, called the driver, took him to the hospital. The hospital was 2 hours away. So they went on a 2-hour drive to the hospital with a broken leg and got a cast put on. And he went back one time to get it checked up, changed the cast, and never went back again.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's worth talking about the extreme emergencies too, like life-saving emergencies. Yeah. Like the Amish aren't allowed to fly in a helicopter, so they don't like if it's within their control. I mean, it is within their control, but like let's say a life-saving emergency happens and the parent isn't right there, sometimes the kid gets loaded up and gets flown off without the parent's consent, which is very rare, but in that case, they would end up flying the child. But in other cases where the parent is involved, a lot of times they will reject that, or they won't consider that as an option. They will just say that they don't believe in flying, it's against their religion, and they will go for the option of like loading them up in an ambulance and getting them there that way. And they think if the child dies before they get to the hospital, then it must have been God's will that he goes home to be with God, even though they could have flown him there just because they don't believe in flying. So that's their way of looking at it. So if you're wondering, like, what's the idea behind not flying? They just simply do not believe in flying at all. So even if it's life or death. Now, there are some parents that will break the rule in that situation. When your child is, it's life or death, whether they fly or not, then they may choose to break the rule and they probably get shot for it. But at least their child's has a better chance of living. And I know that's been a big issue because in some states they've really tried to crack down on the fact that the parent doesn't have that right in a very bad situation. And it usually doesn't, it usually is a little bit of a fight to get them to agree to allowing them to fly the child. Or
it happened to my mom and dad. They weren't right there, and the doctors just took it into their own hands and life flighted my little sister. She had eaten fly bait. She had gotten into fly bait, like the fly poison.
Yeah.
And she ate enough that they took her to the hospital, and the people at the hospital said it's an emergency, and they life flighted her.
Okay.
And she's still alive, so
yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. So you brought out a kerosene lantern tonight, or a lamp?
Oh no! So I have this thing standing under my TV, and I always have to lamp on it. So it's like, I'll add a little character. I'll leave it on there.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
don't have any oil. I would have lit it, but I don't have any oil.
So you should go on that modern technology called Amazon and buy yourself.
Yeah, I was going to earlier today, and I forgot about it.
And then you could put. Oh, it's got the wick in there.
Yes, it's an actual Amish lamp. Everything, like, it just needs oil. That's all it needs. So you turn it up.
So if you've ever used one of these, you see the wick, you have to take a scissors and you trim that.
It every now and then.
You trim it and you keep it nice, and that's how it burns.
You want it you don't want it square, because then the flame will be like square. You want it straight cut off with little rounded corners, so the flame is like perfect shaped, because the flame is the shape of the wick. And if it's lit, like, the dimmer you want it, the further down you turn it. If you turn it too far up, it'll like start smoking, and the chimney will get all black with smoke.
So when we were kids, we would turn it all the way up for fun, just to watch the black smoke roll out.
And then once this is all black and cooled off, you get it off and then wipe it on each other's faces. That's always fun.
Yep. So there's a little tutorial on a kerosene lamp.
Yeah, like, these would be awesome. Like, if the world ever gets hit where we don't have electricity, get yourself one of those with a bunch of kerosene, and you're good to go with your lighting.
Yeah. No, and you can carry those around if they're hot. You carry them, but you got to keep your fingers down here. If you put your fingers up here, it'll be hot. But if you
down here,
down low, you can carry it, and this is how you take it off. You can also take it off, light it, and put that on.
Like, turn the head off here to put oil in, and then to blow it out, you either just take your hand, give it a quick tap, or you blow it, or you lift it and blow it in the bottom there.
Yeah. And you can buy those on Amazon. This is just a free little tutorial to show you. I thought it was cool that you have one. I didn't realize you actually have one.
No, Mary just gave it to me when we were down
wow.
at the wedding.
That's great.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So what other comments you got there?
Okay, so we're past the medical and stuff, but we had posted episode 29. We had posted how to select the bishop.
Oh, yeah.
And someone commented, an Ex Amish person commented and said, when they vote, because remember we had said, like, if you know how they vote.
Yes. Yep.
Said when they vote, they usually have an open window where everybody walks by and tells the guy sitting inside who they vote for. Then they put the books together with only one book with a slip. Once they are done voting, they bring everybody inside, and the guys that are chosen as a candidate are then supposed to go to the table and pick a book and then sit back down at their previous spot. Then the bishop goes around and opens the books one by one until he finds the one that has the book with the slip in it. And the one that has the slip in it is the chosen one. She said, every time I was involved in ordaining a minister or deacon, all the members would vote, and any guy that got 2 or 3 votes was considered a candidate. Don't matter how many guys, as long as they had 2 or more votes. This is what they call sharing the lot. Then whoever happens to get the book with the slip of paper in it is the chosen one.
Okay, well, there you have it. That's a pretty clear explanation.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this. Thank you for that comment.
I'm also really curious. Really curious who she is, because she commented and said, I very well remember when your dad was ordained deacon, my dad.
Oh, wow.
Like, I wonder who it is. Her name is Lena. And I have no idea who she is.
Well, Lena, if you're listening to this episode, please email us, and we'd love to have you on the show. You can go into further detail. Maybe you can share some memories of my brother, Lavina's dad, as well. And if there's anybody else out there listening that would like to be on the show, please email us as well. We'd love to hear from you, and we're going to continue doing interviews. We have taken a slight shift in the way that we're doing the show. If you haven't noticed, the more recent episodes, we've just been doing more in detail content about the Amish, and that's what we hope to do in the future but we also want to continue doing interviews. So if you would like to be on the show, please reach out to us, and we'd love to have you on. You are laughing about something over there. You got something else?
I'm going through these comments, and Anna Gingrich, wonder who that is, commented on that video where you were doubting whether or not Eli would show up.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, bro, stop trying to scare her.
Yeah, Eli did show up, by the way. He showed up.
And Anna, I know who that is. I was kidding, right?
Oh, okay.
I'm assuming it's Anna. Anna Gingrich.
Oh, yeah, Anna Gingrich, yeah. Yeah.
And then someone, episode 28, you and Josh Swartzentrooper from Ohio had been talking about like some stats about divorce and childlessness and stuff like that, or fatherlessness. Someone left a long comment and said, when the state passed no-fault divorce, this really hurt the family. In most contracts, the only way one person can say the contract is broken is by proving fault. But to say one person may say the contract is broken and the other person can't defend that the contract isn't broken means there is no right to contract. Before divorce, the state stopped having adultery as being a crime. So if one spouse commits adultery, there is no punishment. Then the economy went from mom and pop business to corporations. We need to go back to a family-based economy instead of a corporate-based economy. In a free market, there are no corporations because the government doesn't charter corporations in a free market. That is, I did not realize that the states used to not allow no-fault divorces.
Oh, yeah.
That would change a lot if you couldn't get divorced without fault.
Yeah, I remember that. Remember that time briefly, but I don't know it very well.
A lot of people
I haven't studied that a whole lot. Yeah, I mean, for sure, the society is definitely set up to just get into a marriage and get back out if you choose to do so. And I think it shows a lack of commitment. And there's obviously a lot of things that go along with that. I'm not saying, I'm definitely not advocating for people that are in horrible marriages, like physical abuse or anything like that. But I do think that as a society, as a whole, we have gotten to a place where we're just okay with, well, it didn't work out, so let's move on to the next person. And I think that causes people to not really dig deep and grow into who they are supposed to become. And instead, it just causes a lot of pain and heartache, and they take that into the next relationship, and then there's a very good chance that relationship isn't going to work out, and so it just snowballs from there. I don't think the idea of making it easier for people to divorce is actually causing us to have a better life. That's what I'm getting at. And I know that sometimes in a tough situation, it may require both parties to dig deep and to find out really what's going on in order to make it through that time. But it's much better that way than to get, in my opinion, that's my opinion. I know a lot of you will probably disagree, but and that's okay. I just think that if you choose to get out prematurely, instead of evolving into the person that you could become through that difficult situation, which is a lot of times what we do with a painful situation. We want to get out. We want to get away from that, but that also causes us to not become who we're ultimately supposed to become, is what I believe. So, my 2 cents, I'm not telling you to take that advice. I'm just stating what I believe.
Dan Hirschberger commented on our last video and said, I can't believe you guys didn't wait 3 days.
Yep, I know who commented. I know who that is, and what he's referring to is within the Amish rules. They believe that after you get married, you're supposed to wait 3 days to have sex, and I don't know where they get this rule from. Old Testament, I think, maybe.
No, well, it's not a part of the Old or New Testament. That's what's so weird. They have a book that isn't.
Oh,
if you buy like the
that's
whole
right.
Bible, it's not in the Bible. It's called the Book of Tobias,
I remember you saying that.
and they get it out of there. I mean, the Book of Tobias is really interesting. It's really interesting. I love the story, but I've never heard it in English. I don't know. Can you buy it in English? It comes in their huge, you know how they have these big German family Bibles. It comes in there, and it's sandwiched in between the Old Testament and New Testament. And there's like a 400-year gap between the Old Testament and New Testament. And I'm assuming it happened sometime between those 400 years, like in those 400 years, because it was after like Solomon was king and everything, like after Solomon's son, like after like the downfall of Israel or whatever. Yeah. It was like after that, but before Jesus was born. So it must have been between the Old and the New Testament.
Huh. And how did they, I wonder how they follow rules and laws from that book, or? They
do, yes, to some areas of their life, yes.
See, this is news to me, because I don't think I ever saw that in our family. Like, I don't think it was ever discussed. Not that I remember, anyway.
They preach at weddings.
They preach it at weddings?
Like, Tobias born from Herman.
Oh, no.
Like, they sing it.
I remember, like, one song.
It's so funny how they sing.
That was not a very...
It's like, I was thinking about this after, like, I love the song that they sing. It's like in the back of their Ausband that they use in church for their songs. Are like other songs. They're not written in, like, verses. They're more written in, like, a story type of way. And they, at weddings, it's the only time they do this, they sing those, like, stories. And there's the story of Tobias is in the back of the Ausband, the songbook. And they preach it out of the Bible for the wedding ceremony, and then they sing those stories after, like, the ceremony at, like, the midnight table and supper table. When they're always singing while eating, they do that. And it's a song, literally, I don't know, it's a song about Tobias. Like, Tobias Vorein from Herman. And it's a beautiful song.
To you. See,
but it's... I don't know, it's kind of weird singing out stories. Maybe not, but it's just funny how that's not really in the New or Old Testament, but they make it so much about the most fundamental part of their life, their marriage. It's based so much on something that's not in the New or Old Testament.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, see, I was not a very good student in the Amish community, because I didn't learn a lot of the German. I didn't write a lot of German, and so
I want to get my hands on one of those Ausbands.
Okay.
They're church songbooks. Those things are so interesting. I want one of those things. I'm gonna get one too.
Yeah, that's great. But anyway, that's what we were talking about. Lavina and Eli just got married here recently.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time you're watching this, it's not recent, but
yeah, it will be if they watch, or I don't know when they're gonna watch it. So they got married on August 30th.
Yeah. In 2024.
Yeah.
So this is like 2030 or something like that. They may already have a bunch of kids. But anyway, they recently got married, and so we were giving them a hard time about waiting 3 days before they have sex. But obviously they didn't listen. So
you were giving us a hard time about it. You weren't telling us to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
So I stand corrected. You say we didn't listen. Well, we didn't.
You didn't follow the rules. You didn't follow the rules. No.
Well, but
we didn't either wait 3 days.
I wonder how many Amish couples actually do.
I highly doubt there's a whole lot that actually do, because they don't have a way of tracking that. So unless somebody's spying on them, then they can get shunned for it, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, no kidding.
But anyway, I think that is going to pretty much conclude today's episode. I know it's, I hope you enjoyed it. It's a little different than normal. Maybe next week we'll get into the details of the man's clothes. I'm actually trying to get like a full set of men's clothes for myself, because I misplaced the clothes that I had when I left, which I highly doubt I'd fit in them anymore, because I was much smaller back then when I first left. And but I do want a full set, because I'm gonna start wearing them and explain them on the show. So hopefully you guys find that interesting. I know that some of you have found the hair interesting, and you think it's a little strange, which I completely understand, because I got looked at really weird when I was Amish, and I'm sure a lot of you are looking at me really strange now, and that's okay, but I'm completely comfortable now wearing these hair. I used to not be when I was Amish. And I remember driving with my brother one time. We were in the car, and I was not supposed to be with my brother. I was still Amish, but I was in the car with him, and we were driving through Rochester, Minnesota. We're cruising. If anybody knows what cruising the streets is, I'm sure a lot of you kids do. But anyway, we were cruising up and down the streets, and this dude like pulled up beside us, and he rolled down his window, and he's like, "Hey man, are you a dude or a girl or what are you?" And I just thought it was comical. But anyway, I'm a dude, if you're still wondering.
I was just trying to imagine, like, Amish guys, depending on what, like, their facial features look like, they probably do sometimes kind of look like women.
Oh, for sure. With a haircut like this? Absolutely. And that's remember, my facial features were even like, I don't know, I could see how it would have been hard to.
Like sometimes, sometimes we see non-Amish women with haircuts like that. We thought it was really funny because they have a Amish man's haircut.
Yeah.
We realized the Amish men have these non-Amish women's haircuts instead. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that I see now, like with a haircut like this, is I can wear it and I don't feel any shame for wearing it. It's just something that I've been set free from. But back when I had to wear it, I did feel shame. Like I experienced shame. I experienced, what is the right word? My self-esteem wasn't very high because I didn't like looking like that. And people looked at me weird, and, people would stare at you wherever you went down the street because you're an Amish dude, So I guess that's a little takeaway for some of you that are going to visit Amish people. They're human. So just walk up and talk to them.
Yeah. And they're very proud to tell you their story. If you ask a question, they will gladly explain it.
Yep. And make sure you ask them. Tell them that you saw it on the Amish Rebel podcast. Not that they know what that is, but make sure you ask them, are you Old Order or are you Schwarzentrooper, or what church what's the denomination that you're a part of? Because that's a big deciding factor on whether they're going to treat you well or they're going to be rude to you. Schwarzentrooper, more than likely, there's some Schwarzentrooper that are really nice and they know how to communicate, but most of them have a very low education and they don't know how to communicate very well, so they come across as pretty rude at times.
If you ask the Swords and Trooper Amish, they might say they're Gnaruvalo.
Yeah, I don't know why they. Yeah, whatever. That's an inside joke.
Yeah, no kidding. But still, like, if they say Gnaruvalo, they probably mean they're Swords and Trooper Amish.
Yeah. A lot of you listening are probably Gnaruvalo. Because
it doesn't sound.
A lot of ex Amish listen, I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot of them do. And it doesn't sound as bad if you say Gnaruvalo instead of Gnarurolo.
They have a lot of horrible jokes within the Swords and Trooper Amish. Anyway, that concludes today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for supporting the channel. I know that you guys have been sharing it a lot, and we really appreciate that. And we look forward to future episodes, and we'll see you in the next video.